You are listening to Unleashed Now, the enterprise tech podcast generated entirely by AI. In this episode, we unleash into the growth of IT budgets in 2025, boosting enterprise software companies like Microsoft and Salesforce.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be really taking a deep dive into IT budgets.
Yeah, especially what we can expect as we head into 2025.
You know, you're probably listening because you're in the tech industry yourself.
Yeah, maybe you're prepping for some upcoming budget meetings.
Or maybe you're just kind of curious about what the future holds for enterprise software. I don't know.
Either way, you're in the right place. We've got some really interesting insights to share with you.
For sure. And we're not just speculating or anything like that.
Well, no. We're basing this deep dive on a recent KeyBank survey.
Oh, right. The one with all the chief information officers.
Exactly. And the findings, which are summarized really well in this Guru Focus article, are pretty fascinating.
Definitely. These are the folks who actually control those purse strings.
The ones making the decisions about where all that tech money goes.
Yep. And they're giving us a little peek behind the curtain.
So to kick things off, how much are IT budgets actually expected to grow in 2025?
Yeah, that's the big question. What's the magic number?
Well, the survey predicts a 3.9% year-over-year increase.
3.9%, huh? I mean, on the surface, that might not sound like a huge jump.
Right, but remember, we're talking about overall IT budgets here.
Which are already massive.
Exactly. So even a small percentage increase translates to a significant amount of money.
That's a good point. And I think it's worth noting that this 3.9% growth is actually even more optimistic than the mid-year predictions we saw for 2024.
Yeah, it seems like companies are feeling pretty confident about the role of technology in their future success.
Absolutely. They're willing to put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
But it's not just about the raw numbers, is it? What I'm really curious about is where all that money is actually going. The article mentioned front office apps and cloud infrastructure as major priorities. Can you break those down for us a bit?
Sure. Front office apps are basically all those software tools that companies use to interact with their customers.
Okay, like customer relationship management systems, things like that.
Exactly. Think CRM, marketing automation platforms, e-commerce solutions, anything that directly impacts the customer experience.
Got it. So it's all about making those interactions smoother, more personalized, and ultimately driving sales and revenue. Makes sense. What about cloud infrastructure? That sounds a bit more behind the scenes.
It is, but it's just as important. Cloud infrastructure is essentially the engine room of modern business.
Okay, I'm listening.
Instead of maintaining their own massive server rooms, companies are increasingly relying on cloud providers for things like data storage, computing power, and networking, all delivered over the internet.
So it's like renting out computing power instead of owning all the hardware yourself.
Precisely. And that makes a lot of sense, especially with technology changing so rapidly.
Right, you don't want to be stuck with outdated equipment. Speaking of technology, the article specifically mentioned Salesforce as a continued favorite for front office applications. And Microsoft as a leader in cloud computing through their Azure platform. Are we looking at a continuation of their dominance?
They're certainly major players, no doubt about it.
But the tech world is always changing.
Exactly. New contenders emerge all the time.
So what are some of the things that could shake things up in the next few years? What are the big wild cards?
Well, one of the most exciting developments, and an area where Microsoft is heavily invested, is generative AI.
Okay, generative AI. That sounds futuristic. What is that exactly?
It's technology that can actually create new content, text, images, even code based on what it's learned from massive data sets.
We're talking things like AI image generators and chatbots like ChatGPT, right?
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that this technology is rapidly moving beyond just being a novelty. It's becoming a real tool for businesses. Think about automating tasks, crafting super personalized marketing campaigns, or even using AI to analyze customer data and predict behavior with incredible accuracy.
That's pretty mind-blowing stuff. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. The article also mentioned cybersecurity and data analytics as areas receiving increased attention, which, with all this talk about cloud and AI, makes perfect sense.
It does. As businesses become more reliant on digital systems and collect more and more data, protecting that data and figuring out what it all means becomes absolutely crucial.
Right, and that's where companies like Snowflake, CrowdStrike, and Alto networks come into play.
Exactly. They're all leaders in their respective fields.
Yep. The article mentioned Snowflake is a top provider for data analytics, and then CrowdStrike and Palo Alto Networks as maintaining strong positions in the cybersecurity space.
Even with CrowdStrike having that brief downtime incident earlier this year.
Oh, right. That was a big story. It's interesting that they also mentioned MongoDB gaining traction for its analytics capabilities. What's driving that?
MongoDB is known for its flexible, document-oriented database, which is really well suited for handling all that unstructured data that's out there.
Unstructured data, like what?
Think social media posts, data coming from sensors, things like that.
Oh, I see. So it's not just neat rows and columns in a spreadsheet.
Exactly. And this ability to handle unstructured data is becoming increasingly valuable as businesses try to make sense of information from all sorts of sources.
Okay, so we've got increased IT budgets, exciting new technologies like generative AI gaining momentum, and a continued focus on cybersecurity and data analytics. All sounds pretty positive, doesn't it?
It does. But like with anything, there are always challenges and potential pitfalls.
Oh, I bet. What are some of the things that could throw a wrench in the works?
Well, one thing that stood out in the survey was a growing sense of caution around IT spending.
Yeah, while the overall sentiment about IT is pretty positive, there's definitely a growing sense of, I guess you could say, caution around IT spending.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and in fact, 62%
Wow.
of the CIOs who were surveyed actually said there needs to be like greater scrutiny,
Yeah.
on how IT budgets are allocated.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's not just about spending more at this point.
Right.
It's got to be about spending smarter,
It's about strategy.
not just throwing money at the problem.
Totally. And a big part of that, too, seems to be, tied to rising prices.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Like, the article specifically calls out Microsoft, Oracle, and Salesforce for implementing price hikes.
Ouch.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
So how much of an impact is that having? I mean, price hikes on top of everything else.
It's definitely a factor, especially when you consider, the whole thing about increasing price sensitivity that the article mentioned.
Right. Businesses are getting more careful about where they're spending their money.
Exactly. They're a lot more discerning these days,
Yeah.
They want a clear return on investment for every dollar they spend.
Makes sense.
So they're not just going to throw money at the latest, shiny tech toy anymore.
They want solutions that actually deliver.
Yeah, they want results, right?
For sure.
Measurable outcomes.
So how do they find that balance then?
Between, the need to stay ahead of the curve, but also being fiscally responsible.
Yeah, it's like a delicate dance.
It really is. And this is where I think our deep dive today becomes particularly relevant for our listeners,
Absolutely.
Like, this isn't just some abstract industry analysis we're talking about here, This has real-world implications.
Okay, so let's bring it home for our listeners then.
Sure.
How can they use these insights,
Wow.
What can they actually do with this information?
Well, I think first and foremost, awareness is key.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing these trends can help people anticipate shifts in their own industry.
Right.
Whether they're at a small business or a huge company.
It's about seeing the bigger picture.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the forces that are shaping the tech landscape.
Okay.
And then, positioning yourself accordingly.
So, for example, if you work in IT security and you know that cybersecurity is a major focus,
Yeah.
you might be able to use that knowledge to advocate for, I don't know, more resources for your team or more training, something like that.
Exactly.
Or if you're in marketing and you see the rise of generative AI,
Yeah.
maybe you start experimenting with some AI-powered tools and you can get an edge on your competition.
Right. It's all about being proactive.
Right.
And aligning your skills and strategies with where the market is heading.
Don't just wait for things to happen.
No, be ready. And even if you're not directly involved in, IT decision making,
Yeah.
understanding these trends can still help you make informed decisions about your own career,
Like professional development, stuff like that.
Exactly. Like, are you thinking about upskilling maybe in data analytics or cloud computing? Insights like what we're talking about today, those can give you a sense of which skills are going to be in high demand in the coming years.
Oh, wow. So you can kind of future-proof your career
Right.
by investing in the right areas.
Precisely.
It's like connecting the dots between those budget lines in a company's spreadsheet. Your own personal career path.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fascinating.
It is. It's all connected. Now here's a final thought to ponder as we move into the next section of our deep dive here.
Okay, hit me.
So we've been talking about the need for, greater scrutiny on IT spending
Right.
and how businesses are becoming more price sensitive. But this kind of raises a big question.
Uh-oh, what's that?
How do we actually measure the true value of these technology investments?
That's a good question.
Like, is it just about the bottom line?
Yeah.
Or are there other factors to consider?
Right, right. Like, how do you quantify the value of, I don't know, like innovation for a better customer experience?
Yeah, those things are hard to put a dollar amount on.
For sure.
It's about more than just cost savings or efficiency gains,
I see what you mean.
It's about how technology can actually empower businesses to innovate, to create those better customer experiences, and ultimately to achieve their strategic goals,
Yeah, it's about the big picture.
It is. It's about seeing the forest for the trees.
So, as we start to look at some specific companies,
Yeah.
how should our listeners be thinking about this?
Well, as you're navigating this landscape, I really encourage you to challenge yourself,
Okay.
to think critically about the value proposition of the solutions you're considering.
Don't just get swept up in the hype.
Exactly. Don't just buy into the hype. Make sure it truly aligns with your needs and your goals.
Okay, now I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on those specific companies that the article called out. We've mentioned some of them already, like
Right.
Salesforce. They're still a top choice for business software.
They are.
But with all these new companies popping up,
Yeah.
can they really maintain that dominance?
That's a good question. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they've been at the top for so long.
They have. Salesforce is definitely a giant in the industry.
But things change so fast in tech.
They do. So can they keep up?
That's the million-dollar question.
Well, they certainly have a lot going for them, a strong foothold in the CRM market. And they've got that reputation for, constantly coming up with new stuff.
Innovation, yeah.
Exactly. But as you said earlier, the competition's getting fierce.
It is.
Lots of new players coming in trying to grab a piece of that pie.
So what do they need to do?
To stay on top.
Yeah, what's the secret sauce?
I think a big part of it's going to be about staying agile.
Okay.
Really adapting to those evolving customer needs, like we talked about before, and really embracing those new technologies.
Especially in those key areas we discussed.
Yeah, like AI and data analytics.
It's like they need to disrupt themselves.
Yeah, before somebody else does it for them.
That's a great way to put it.
And speaking of potential disruption,
Oh, here we go.
let's talk about Microsoft for a second.
Okay, yeah, they're kind of a behemoth.
They're a powerhouse in cloud computing.
And generative AI, like we said before.
Right. But even giants have their vulnerabilities, right?
I guess so, yeah. So what are we thinking?
Well, I think one of their biggest strengths is actually, their size.
Okay.
It sounds counterintuitive, but, well, think about it. They've got this incredibly diverse portfolio of products and services,
That's true, yeah.
and they're really good at integrating all of those things together.
That's definitely an advantage.
It is, but managing a tech ecosystem that vast can also be a challenge, right?
Oh, for sure.
Just keeping everything cohesive and aligned,
Yeah, that's got to be tough.
It is, and plus they're facing increasing scrutiny from regulators these days.
Oh, right, those antitrust concerns.
Exactly, so navigating those waters is going to be crucial for their growth.
That makes sense.
It's interesting how even the giants have their own unique set of challenges.
It is, so
Yeah.
maybe being a smaller company is better.
I don't know about that, but let's talk about some of those smaller companies that are making waves, shall we?
Okay, yeah.
Like Snowflake, for instance.
Oh, yeah, they've really emerged as a leader in data analytics.
They have, and their cloud-based platform's been a game changer for businesses,
I can see why.
especially the ones dealing with just massive amounts of data.
It's a data-driven world.
It is, and they're really good at handling all that.
What's their secret?
Well, I think a big part of it is their focus on scalability and performance.
Okay.
Making sure their systems can handle those huge data sets without, falling apart.
That's crucial.
It is, and they've also been really smart about, forming partnerships.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Right, with other key players in the industry.
Expanding your reach, basically.
Exactly. It's all about collaboration these days.
So speaking of collaboration
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with a rapidly changing landscape,
Yeah.
let's talk about CrowdStrike and Palo Alto networks.
Oh, yeah, the cybersecurity giants.
They're both holding strong, but cybersecurity is a tough business to be in.
It is. The threat landscape is constantly evolving.
It's a never-ending battle.
Right, and staying ahead of the curve is crucial.
Absolutely. So what are they doing to keep up?
Well, both companies are known for their really robust solutions and their commitment to research and development.
Okay, so they're not resting on their laurels.
No, they're constantly innovating.
Good.
But, remember that CrowdStrike downtime incident we mentioned?
Oh, yeah, that was a bit of a wake-up call.
It was. It highlighted the importance of reliability and redundancy,
Absolutely, especially in the cybersecurity world.
Yeah, because losing access to your security systems, even for a short time,
Can be disastrous.
it can. So maintaining customer trust is paramount.
For sure, trust is everything in this business.
It really is, especially as these cyber threats become even more sophisticated,
Okay, last but not least,
Mhm.
let's touch on MongoDB.
Oh, yeah, the database disruptors.
They're getting a lot of attention for their analytics capabilities.
They are, and it's well-deserved.
So what sets them apart?
Well, like we talked about earlier, their real strength lies in their ability to handle unstructured data.
Right, all that messy stuff.
Exactly. And as more and more businesses try to make sense of that kind of data, MongoDB is really well positioned to help them do that.
They've got the right tools for the job.
They do. Their database is super flexible, very developer-friendly,
Okay.
and they've been really smart about building out those analytics capabilities.
So it sounds like the IT world is a pretty exciting place to be right now,
It is. Lots of innovation, lots of change.
and a lot of opportunity.
Definitely for both businesses and individuals.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, from overall budget trends
Mhm.
to the specific challenges and opportunities facing some of the biggest names in the industry.
And everything in between.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation.
It has, and I think the key takeaway for our listeners
Mhm.
is that it's more important than ever to stay informed, to stay curious,
Absolutely.
and to be willing to adapt and evolve.
Because the tech landscape is never going to stand still,
That's for sure. So if you're in the tech industry,
Or even if you're just interested in it.
now is the time to really engage, to learn, and to explore.
That's how you thrive in this world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Likewise, and to our listeners, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time.
Keep those minds engaged.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please share and follow us on social media. Find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube to be the first to listen to our next episode.